Good afternoon. Welcome to the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners panel discussion on, finally, the Water Assistance Program. Today we have a program sponsored by the Committee on Consumers and the Public Interest and the Committee on Water. My name is Linton. I'm the chair of the Committee on Consumers and the Public Interest, and we're here today to talk about the LIHWAP program. On June 4th, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, through the Administration for Children and Families, launched the new Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program, also known as LIHWAP. With us today, we have 4 guests and a co-panelist, Commissioner Bocanegra, the chair of the Committee on Water. And we're here today to talk about this program. With us, as our guest, we have Christina Clark from the Federal Office of Community Services. She is the Operations and Policy Branch Chief for LIHWAP. We have Mr. Christopher J. Ayers, who is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Utilities Commission Public Staff and President of the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates, also known as Nasuka. We also have joining us the Senior Manager for Collections and Billing of American Water, Ms. Heather Holting. And finally, we have Mr. David Wortman, who is the Deputy Director of Community Assistance for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. This is a wonderful conversation. I hope you enjoy it. I will be joining it in progress.
The intent of LIHWAP is to maintain continuity of water services for low-income households. And this access to water is really crucial at this time because it really allows families to maintain health and safety standards that reduce the spread of COVID. And also, I note that providing these benefits now is particularly important because people are still facing uncertainty related to employment and income, and some of the moratorium that were put in place to protect the disruption of services are starting to expire. So the timeliness of this is really important, and it is an emergency program. To emphasize the importance of the continuity of water services, OCS has established 3 priority groups that are being communicated to grantees. And so the first priority is households that have been disconnected and do not currently have water services in their home. The second priority group are households that are facing disconnection or have a threat of disconnection due to arrearages that are currently on their water bills. And so for priority groups 1 and 2, the grantee should be paying the full amount that is needed to reconnect services to these households or to prevent disconnection. And in many cases, this will be the full amount of the bill that the household has on their account. And that is, it's allowable to include any fees or late payments that are assessed with this bill to make sure that the household is maintaining water services. And the third priority group that's being served by LIHWAP are those households that are seeking assistance to reduce their current bills. And this is to help them ensure affordability of their household water services. And so for these groups, the amount of benefit payment is up to the discretion of the grantee. And we are encouraging grantees to establish what we call a benefit matrix. And that's really just an established set of predefined parameters that can be applied during application intake to help the grantee identify the benefit amount. So benefit matrix will usually take into account the household size, the income for the household, and the percentage of that income that's being paid for the wastewater bill. And so we refer to that as the household water burden. I would say with regards to the priority group, we have learned from many grantees that they only anticipate being able to serve priority groups 1 and 2. And so those are the households that are disconnected or facing disconnection. And we've gotten that feedback from grantees, and that limitation is really based on the limited amount of funding that's available in comparison to the needs with their service area. So a lot of grantees don't participate that the funding will stretch far enough to offer rate reduction, although that's not all grantees, it's just what we've been getting as far as feedback in regards to a lot of the grantees. And so now I'll talk a little bit about how the program is being implemented. And one of the first things grantees should do is reach out to the water utility service providers in their area to establish vendor agreements. And so vendor agreements really establish the parameters for the work and communication between the grantee and the water utility provider, who will ultimately receive the LIHWAP benefit payment. And so I like to categorize the agreements between vendors into 2 buckets. And the first is desired activities, and then the second is required activities. And so desired activities include collaboration efforts and information sharing that really build rapport and support the program overall. And so this might include information sharing related to the community needs. And a lot of times vendors have information and can potentially share information related to the number of households that have been disconnected or the number of households that are pending disconnection, the average amount of arrearages being faced by households or the average water bill. And then also information about any bill payment assistance programs the vendor might already be implementing, or if they're a moratorium that they're operating under, and if so, when do those moratorium expire? And so this information is really going to help the grantee design their program, and that might include helping them to establish their benefit levels and even potentially support the allocation of their funding amounts among the priority levels. And then so the other bucket are the required activities. And the required activities are really to ensure communications and consumer protections related to the LIHWAP program. And so these activities might include or do include the establishment of processes and procedures to notify households of the amount of benefit payment assistance that was applied on their behalf. Also methods to confirm on a regular basis that the benefits have been credited appropriately to the households and that service has been restored, or either that the threat of disconnection has been removed. We also want the grantee vendor agreements to assure that no household receiving assistance under this grant is treated adversely because of the assistance they're receiving. And so no additional fees because of the involvement in the LIHWAP program and that sort. And while written requirements are not required, if there's not a written agreement in place, then grantees really must develop rigorous procedures to ensure that the communications and assurances that I outline are being met. And so these requirements are outlined in the LIHWAP terms and conditions. And if you're interested in taking a look, it's point 11H, and it lists the requirements for the vendor agreement. And so I would note that some grantees work with thousands of vendors in their state. And this is definitely something that I'm still learning about, the magnitude and quantity of vendors that might serve a state or a service area. And so this process in establishing the vendor agreements can be a lift for the grantees as they're working to set up their programs. And so I have received questions in some of our interactions with vendors, and they've asked if they can initiate communications with LIHWAP grantees. And to that point, I would say yes, that is encouraged. It'll help ease the administrative burden for grantees who may be working to set up these agreements and establish communication with a multitude of vendors in their service area. And that in turn can expedite the benefit payments being made on behalf of the households as well. And so for any vendors that are interested in establishing communication, I would just say that we have the contacts for all the state LIHWAP administrators on the Office of Community Services LIHWAP program website. And so if you're looking for contacts, you can look there. And then within the next week or so, we'll also have the contacts for the tribal programs up as well. So that's a place where you can find communication. I also want to highlight that some of the vendors are working with some of the grantees are working with local community action agencies and partnering to administer the program. So sometimes it will be those local community action agencies that are reaching out to set up vendor agreements as well. In regards to allowable costs, the LIHWAP program provides a 15% administrative cap. And so the administrative costs can be used for support staff, research, payroll, and that sort of thing. There's also an allowable cost category for outreach and eligibility. And so that includes the time for intake and also notifications and providing awareness for the program to the public in general. And then the last allowable cost category is household benefits. And the target is that 75% of the grant award be allocated to benefits. And before I conclude, I do want to give you a brief update of where we are with the program. And so currently we've made awards to 49 states, 5 territories, the District of Columbia, and just over 100 tribes. So the grantees are given access to the administrative portion of their grant, which is 15% upon award, and that's to support them in standing up their programs. They'll get access to the full amount of the allotment and approval and submission of their LIHWAP implementation plan. And so the first round of plans were due on August 9th for around 110 grantees. And so we did receive some requests for extensions, but we're working to review those, and we've been able to release full funding to approximately 30 grantees. The next round of grantee plans are due October 15th for those that didn't meet the initial submission deadline for award documents. So we established a second round of funding for those folks that got their paperwork in a little bit late. And we'll be working really quickly to turn those plans around once we receive them to support grantees in initiating benefit payments. And so I hope that this brief introduction and overview has provided you with some general information, and I'm open to question and answers during the Q&A portion of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clark. I appreciate the comments, and they're very, very comprehensive comments. It's great to hear that the program is already moving forward and assistance money is already moving forward to a number of states. So hopefully they are moving forward with the initial implementation programs necessary within their states to make sure consumers can access the funds. So let's hear a little more about the need for this type of program. With us, as I mentioned earlier, we have Christopher Ayers, who's the Executive Director of the North Carolina Utilities Commission Public Staff and President of the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates, also known as Nasuka. Mr. Ayers.
Thank you, Commissioner. So Nasuka is thrilled that we finally have a LIHWAP program. It's something that Nasuka and consumer advocates across the country have long talked about. I think virtually every meeting, our annual and mid-year meetings, and when we tackle issues related to LIHEAP and so forth, the conversation always at some point gets to, why aren't we doing this for water? Water is just as important as electric, as gas, as communications, and so why aren't we doing this for water? So we're very very happy that the need of low-income water customers has been recognized really for the first time, and that we're moving forward on it. Nasuka mentioned this in our COVID resolution back a year and a half ago, and was very hopeful that this missing piece would finally be brought to bear. The loss of water leads to a number of challenges for low-income customers. So first, there's just the sheer sanitation and health impacts associated with the loss of water. And I think that goes without saying. But then there's derivative impacts of that. You are more likely to get evicted from an apartment, or from a home, or have a home condemned if water service or wastewater service is cut off, as opposed to say electric, or obviously you can continue living in your home without telecom, but water frequently puts people on the street, and not just temporarily, but it can lead to homelessness situations. So addressing the water concern is very important to us. So I do think it's important to note, though, that this is, as of now, this is a one-time issue as we read the legislation. And so Nasuka members are, quite frankly, hopeful that this is merely the beginning of a conversation rather than a one-time shot, because this is not just a COVID issue. Just as customers have challenges paying their energy bills, customers have trouble paying their water and wastewater bills all times of year, even absent a pandemic. So the $1.1 billion number, I mean, that's a big nominal number, but there's a significant need due to COVID alone, and then there's also a significant and ongoing need that's going to extend well beyond whenever the pandemic finally reaches a manageable level. So we're very hopeful that this is the foundation of a long-term LIHWAP program that can consistently bring help to those who need it. Nasuka, as the National Association of State Consumer Advocates, are ready and willing and eager to help shape the program and connect customers to the resources. Some of the challenges that we see really center on information and education. So I did a quick little search of LIHWAP funds in North Carolina, and really had to do some digging. I eventually found some pretty good stuff on our School of Government website. But for a customer who is having trouble paying their water or wastewater bill, it wouldn't be that easy to find. And in North Carolina, I found a lot of references to county websites where folks are probably going to start in terms of searching on the internet. But I think that we've got to get creative in terms of informing customers that the resource is out there. And one of the best ways to do that is to utilize our utility companies that are providing the services to get that word out. And the second part of that is of information is the education. What does it entail, and how can you utilize it? So you can't utilize it if you don't know that it's out there, and then if you don't understand the full range of the fact that it is designed to get you reconnected, because some folks say, well, I've already been disconnected, there's not much I can do. Most folks look for help prior to getting disconnected. And so I'm happy to hear about the tiered approach that Ms. Clark laid out with respect to approaching the disconnected folks first, and then those that are in danger of being disconnected. But there's clearly a lot of need, and as Ms. Clark mentioned, these funds will probably be exhausted before you get to that third level, which are folks that are distressed and need some assistance. The last thing that I'll mention, and we've heard this from a few states, is there seems to be some discussion about which water suppliers or wastewater providers this applies to. I think some states have talked about simply limiting it to public or municipal systems as opposed to investor-owned utilities. So the privately owned systems that tend to be regulated by commissions, those customers are distressed and need the assistance just as bad as municipal customers. And so it sounds like some states are giving some thought to that. I don't know of any states that have made final determinations as to that limitation, but from Nasuka's standpoint, we're very concerned that this be equally available for all water and wastewater customers because they're all in the same boat, and simply not limited to municipal systems. But we applaud the program. We stand ready to help water companies and customers connect. Very excited about the fact that this is a great start, and hopefully it's the beginning of a permanent and far-reaching LIHWAP program that can bring relief to customers for years to come. Happy to answer any questions and look forward to the discussion.
Mr. Ayers, I appreciate your comments and also your spending time with us here today. And I'm pretty certain that the long advocacy that Nasuka has made for this type of initiative has contributed to at least the creation and getting started. So certainly have the responsibility of keeping it going from here. And so now, if we're talking about a program that's going to provide assistance to consumers who are having challenges paying a water company bill, it's good to hear about how the water companies are going to respond to the creation of a program like this. So with us today, we have one of our most excellent water companies with us today, Miss Heather Holtling. She is the Senior Manager of Collections and Billing at American Water. Ms. Holtling.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. Yeah, good afternoon, and thanks for having me and American Water. Again, I'm Heather Holtling, Senior Manager, American Water Customer Service. My brief background on American Water, just in case you aren't familiar with us, we are the largest publicly traded water and wastewater service provider in the United States. American Water provides service to approximately 15 million people in 46 states and employs more than 7,000 employees. In Maryland, we serve approximately 23,000 water and wastewater customers, and we leverage the experience and best practices identified throughout our American Water enterprise. So, I again want to say American Water appreciates the invitation opportunity to engage in conversation decisions impacting our customers with the funds allocated by the federal government through LIHWAP to assist and manage their water and wastewater bills. I think, Mr. Ayers, you said it best. This is not just about COVID and what happened during the pandemic that's still going on, unfortunately. But this is just an amazing benefit for our customers, no matter what time of year it is. American Water is pleased and applauds the federal government in taking a step forward to provide water and wastewater customers with relief of their bills where they qualify for low-income assistance. We already administer several existing programs, just talking about, help to others, which is very big in Maryland. And we do have some other programs that we manage as well for some of our other states. However, these additional dollars will assist our most vulnerable customers. Many that we've seen their financial gravely impacted due to the pandemic. But additionally, the economic toll of the pandemic has increased the number of customers in need for assistance. The pandemic continues to be a challenge for many across the country. Being able to have resources such as LIHWAP to give us another opportunity to help our customers is just amazing to us. This is a difficult time, and honestly, none of us want to shut off anybody's water at this point. We are all facing this challenge together, and we want to help our customers. The $1.1 billion that has been allocated to LIHWAP isn't reoccurring funds from the federal government at this point. Once these funds are depleted in the states, our customers will not have the benefit of additional resources should there be a need. So sustaining this program continues to benefit our customers in a number of ways. As mentioned previously, it allows for our most vulnerable customers to receive financial assistance. Beyond this year, we will continue our advocacy to make this program an annual program like the LIHWAP program. I think Ms. Clark did mention that, it's 40 years celebrating LIHWAP. I believe that program started off just as this one did. And so I'm hoping that this is a program that does continue just like LIHWAP. Water utilities serve the same customers as electric and gas utilities, so providing our customers with the needed financial assistance is critical and puts the industries on a level playing field. And we thank NARUC for its affordability resolution and wavering support of a federal low-income water assistance program. To that end, American Water has been working closely with Maryland and other regulated states over the past couple of months to review the proposed state LIHWAP plans. Each state under the guidance from federal government has modeled their state LIHWAP plans after the long-established LIHWAP. However, there are a few open areas. So currently, there's no formal process identified for how the administrator will be communicating with American Water. Process for applying payments has not been identified in all state plans. But without those solid plans, we may be challenged with resource constraints, process development, and communication that can be shared with the frontline employees. These are all areas that we look to work through together, though. We also are heartened by the continued support Nasuka has voiced for the LIHWAP program and calls for the water program that we've seen come to fruition for LIHWAP. American Water looks forward to working with Mr. Ayers moving forward. We are so encouraged by this forum, so thank you to both commissioners for coordinating, and we look forward to working with NARUC and the various committees to identify the work through the intricacies of implementing LIHWAP. This is very close and dear to my heart, considering that I am the Billing and Collections Senior Manager within American Water. So I hear all the stories. I received several emails from customers about help and how can we continue assistance. So this is near and dear. So just wanting this program to continue is something that we are absolutely looking forward to. Any questions or anything throughout, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holting. I appreciate your comments here today, and we look forward to the questions and afterwards, after we finish with our panelists. Just as a reminder for those of you who have questions, you can put the questions in the chat. And if you're new to using the WebEx platform, the question area should be either at the bottom of your screen or in the upper right-hand corner, depending on the device you're using. So now that we've talked a little bit about the program itself, need for it, and how the utility companies look to integrate with the program, it's useful to find out how the different states we'll move forward with implementing it and perhaps get some lessons learned on the best way to do so. So I'm pleased today to have with us David Wortman, the Deputy Director of Community Assistance for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Mr. Wortman.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Linton. First of all, I want to give a little bit of history on myself so you can see where I'm coming from this. So I'm a former public works director. I managed the water and wastewater system for a municipality of about 18,000 here in Illinois for a little over 7 years. So I understand water systems, and I did rate studies and things like that, and was in charge of some of the collections and shutoffs. So I've dealt with that part of it. For the last 3 years, I've managed the LIHWAP system here in Illinois. So I've become familiar with how LIHWAP is administered and the processes that we have to go through to meet the federal requirements to administer that correctly. And the last thing I want to say, because of some of the way I talk about this, it may sound negative. So I want to let you know I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer, so I am a do-gooder by nature. So I want this program to work, but I do want to identify some of the difficulties that Illinois is having, or we're working through and we're going to be able to handle, but I just want to explain some of the difficulties of administering a water program. So the first thing I'll say is that LIHWAP is fundamentally, there are fundamental differences between gas and electric and water and sewer. And you can't just take the LIHWAP program and do a find and replace in Word and have a water program. And some of the things that change is if you look at the average cost for gas and electric and kind of what that means for the average benefit for a LIHWAP client. So here in Illinois, the average cost for electric is a little over $900 per household per year. And the natural gas is $1,100. So they're something like $2,000 a year for gas and electric. And our average LIHWAP payment benefit to the client has been historically $700. So $700 benefit. So in the city of Chicago, the average water cost per year, water and sewer cost per year, is less than $350. So the benefit that we will be giving to a water customer is going to, by necessity, be significantly less than the benefit that we give for a gas and electric customer. So you would think, well, that's great. But the issue becomes that our grantees that we fund who are on the ground doing the benefit administration, they're community action agencies and other local agencies like that. And they receive their payment for doing that work as a percentage of the benefit that is issued. So a $700 benefit, if the local agency for admin and program support gets like 14%, then we're giving something like $80 to $90 per application for them to administer the program. So what are they doing for that? They're doing income verification, and then they're doing communication with the utility to make that payment and then assure that that payment was made. We have systems set up to communicate with the large utilities here in the state. And in Illinois, 6 of our utilities, the big 6, they are all communicating utilities, which means that we have an IT system in place that when we issue a benefit, it automatically connects the user's account number to our IT program. And there's a direct communication with that utility, and it's all electronic. There's no written check or anything like that. 90% of our LIHWAP benefits go through that electronic process. So that's a very efficient process, but all of that is still costing $80 to $90 per application. So if our average benefit for water is going to be something significantly less than $700, then that percentage, if we do 15% that is the currently allowed for LIHWAP from the state or from the federal government, say that the benefit is $200. Well, you're talking about a $30 admin limit then. And there are some others, that it's not strictly admin, you can use some other money. But the thought is, if it's costing $80 and the benefit's 80, then it's costing you as much to run the program as the benefit to the customer. So we're going to have to, this year, the way the state of Illinois is handling that is that we're running our program as a crisis program. HHS has asked us not to do credits on accounts that we should be paying for arrearages. So we are handling disconnections and people in imminent threat of disconnection. So we're limiting it to $250 in debt or greater. And we're also trying to, the maximum extent possible, piggyback on LIHWAP or CSBG for income verification. So we are allowing categorical income verification if you're receiving one of our other programs. So that's reducing the administrative burden, but it's still the process, even if that first part, the income verification, is taken care of, the administration of the payment is going to be more complicated for the water programs as well. I mentioned earlier that for LIHWAP, our 6 largest utilities are 90% of our payments. Here in Illinois, we have 2,700 water and wastewater utilities. Some of them are tiny. They might be a rural neighborhood that has 20 households on them. So the local agency would have to pick up the telephone, talk to the secretary, who may be a part-time person, and try to coordinate a written check to be sent to that utility. So the cost to administer this program is going to be possibly larger than LIHWAP, but the benefits are smaller. So what we're preparing to do, Illinois American, part of American Water here in the state, has worked to get a state program, and we're going to be starting that in the next few years. So here in Illinois, we know we're going to have an ongoing program. We are working to redo our IT system. LIHWAP has been on the same system for like 20 years, so we really need to redo the system. And my goal is to have a uniform system going forward where when you sign up for LIHWAP, that your water assistance will be automatic if you're eligible for it, and that will at least cut down on the front end income verification part of it. The back end payments is going to be an ongoing issue. So we're going to be using this year's federal program to help us learn and to help us understand what some of those issues are going to be, try to start understanding what the cost structure is going to be for the local agencies. The last thing I'll say is a couple times it's been talked about the funding level for this year's the federal program. So the state of Illinois is getting for the client benefit portion of our LIHWAP, it's going to be around $34 million. That's a 24-month program. So if you say 17 million this year, our LIHWAP program this year is 295 million. So this is significantly less funding than the LIHWAP program. So when we were trying to design how are we going to do this, the thought process that we went through is this an entitlement program where if you have this income level, you're going to get a benefit, or is this going to be a crisis program where you have to meet the income eligibility, but then have some other, have a crisis situation? And that's why for this, because the 17 million, if we made it an entitlement, the funding, we would have either had to make the benefit level very low, or we would have run out of funding in the first couple months. So instead of making it an entitlement, for this first year, we're doing it as the crisis, where we're going to be paying off arrearages for people who are shut off or in danger of being shut off. And that's that funding level was one of the primary reasons that we decided to take that route. So that's what I had to say, Commissioner, and as everyone else, I look forward to any questions.
you very much. I appreciate your comments as well, and a lot of your experience is very valuable for this particular conversation, as well as many others, I'm certain, but especially here today. So I guess again, if any of you have questions in the audience, my understanding is we have a pretty big audience, so if you have any questions, make sure to put it in our chat, and we'll be sure to read it over to our panelists. I guess my first question for you today will wait, because I have a co-moderator, and I would like to give her the opportunity to ask a question. Commissioner Bocanegra.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton, and thank you, everybody, for those wonderful remarks. I guess my first question is that I'm listening to everybody, and there seemed to be one common thread. Everybody echoed a little bit, and that was sort of the limited nature of these funds. And so I guess my question would be for Ms. Clark. I'm wondering, is there some sort of review period that after the program ends, you guys revisit this at some point and decide whether this should be a longer program, and if so, then if the funding should be increased?
Sure, thank you for that question. And so I would have to say, at the level of the department and also the Office of Community Services that implements this, we take guidance and instruction about the funding amounts that are available from Congress, who appropriates the funding for the program. And so what we are really focusing on is gathering information about the needs that were met, and also any gaps in services. So what need was not able to be met, and what were some of the challenges, and why this funding wasn't able to stretch, for example, to cover that priority group 3. And so we'll really gather that information that's provided to us from grantees and put that into a report to Congress to signal to them what was achieved with the amount of funding that they appropriated for this program, and also what was not able to be achieved, and what needs were not able to be served based on the amount of funding available. And so I imagine that Congress will take that information and respond to it, through discussions with the senators and the people who make the appropriations decisions. And so that's just what we're doing to try to serve, providing information to them, is gathering the need, what's not served, and making sure that's documented and available.
So I have a question, unless one of our other panelists would like to add something to Ms. Clark's comments. And if no, then my question is we have a number of different groups that are represented here on our panel today. All of us, however, are talking about and thinking about the impact that this program will have for consumers. So consumers are going to hear more about this as panels like this one and other organizations begin to spread the word about its existence. So I guess for each of you, what would you like to see a consumer do at this point? Once they find out that this program is available, in some cases, they're going to need assistance sooner rather than later. So what steps would you recommend they take? Keeping in mind that some of them, as Mr. Wortman mentioned earlier, may be customers of utility companies that we might not even think of as a company, because it only has 10 customers. So what should consumers do once they find out about this program?
Yeah, so I can start from the utility perspective, from American Water's perspective. We've had a lot of programs out there, especially during this time, and a lot of communication to customers about where they need to go and what they need to do. I think that it is just about making sure that from every level of our organization that there is some sort of communication, whether that's on social media, whether that's on our website. Our CSRs are, as the customers call in, this is again another opportunity for them. And so once this program is rolled out, and some states have started, to Ms. Clark's point, we just need to make sure that we are getting that communication out so they know that there is all this assistance out there to help them, especially if they are in need, as of like Mr. Wortman said, if they're in a situation where they're ready to be turned off or they are disconnected. those are the customers that we have to make sure that we're getting that communication to. So from our side of it, it is all about communication with our customers, and making sure that they know exactly where to go and what to do in order to get this funding.
Yes.
So go ahead, David.
So in Illinois, when we're fully operational, the governor's going to do a press thing, and because we're working with our same network that administers LIHWAP, they have their their outreach, but we're also here in the state for the first time going to do a statewide marketing campaign. Because of COVID last year, we set up a website where a client can put their name and the county that they live in and enter that, and then their local agency will reach them. So we're doing statewide marketing, the local agencies doing marketing, and we'll do our regular governor and press releases and such.
So I just want to echo the importance of the utility communicating to the customer. Yeah. Because that, there is no database that the public staff has that we can email all the water customers, say, hey, right, here's some funds that are available. And, the utilities, particularly if you have, if you're rather progressive with data and analytics, some utilities are better able than others to sort of identify those who might need the help or be entering in a situation where they need the help. I think one of the challenges, and I don't think this is unique to North Carolina, but really is the decentralized nature of the program, at least here in North Carolina, because you're as customers, you look at the information on the websites and all, and you're directed to your county, to your county social services agencies. And so as a utility, if you're operating in 30 or 40 different counties, your call center and your customer reps are going to have to balance. I mean, they're going to have that information at their fingertips, depending on, what county and what agency they're going to have to, you're going to have to send them to. Same thing with, say public staff. We run a call center when customers sort of hit a dead end with utilities. They call the public staff, and we try to mediate reasonable outcomes between customers and the utilities. And so my staff's going to have to, we're navigating 100 different counties in North Carolina, and as you're trying to connect folks with the resources at level, there's just a lot of there's a lot of juggling that's going to have to be done. And if we can figure out a way to streamline those lines of communication so that we can connect those people, and that the people that are taking those calls know where to send the people, that's a problem we've got to think through and solve. And I don't know that we're going to solve it by the end of this session, but that's just something that's on my mind, and I'd be curious on any thoughts on how you bridge that gap.
So what I would add to that conversation is that when looking at how to service the customer, this is a limited effort at this point. It's a one-time program. And so in order to maximize the reach of this program, we're encouraging the states and the grantees community action agencies to really look at opportunities to braid and blend the funding that's available through LIHWAP with other programs in order to provide wraparound assistance to the household. And so what that might look like is using maybe a community service block grant funds to support if, for instance, there's a need of minor repairs in the household that aren't covered through LIHWAP. And that some of those repair issues lead to really high water bills. And so when you turn the service on, if there's still leaking pipes, that's just going to put the household back in this situation where the bill's really high. So looking for opportunities to braid and blend the funding to maximize the reach of the LIHWAP program. And just to that point, I would add in response to Mr. Wortman that I'm also a returned Peace Corps volunteer. And so I think that many of us that were in Peace Corps and also do this work are used to working with limited resources and getting really creative about the way that we use those resources. And so I'd extend that attitude to the implementation of LIHWAP and just encouraging people to get creative about combining the funds with other available funds and just to maximize the reach and the services that are available to households in need.
Thank you, Ms. Clark, and to all the panelists. So we have another question. We have several questions actually from in our Q&A. Let me turn to one from Ms. Chelsea Boozer. This one was directed to Mrs. Clark, and I'll paraphrase it. She wanted to know if the federal government had any guidance to the states where the administrators could enter into an NDA so that the states could utilize the LIHWAP or SNAP lists to provide assistance to consumers as opposed to requiring a standalone application. Basically, it's going along the lines of finding a way to eliminate some of the administrative challenges and costs even that Mr. Wortman mentioned earlier. That way consumers can get the assistance faster, known low-income consumers.
And so we are looking at putting some additional pieces of guidance in place, and some of those include example applications. There are example vendor agreements, but when it comes to like shared lists and that sort of thing to identify eligible participants, there's nothing that currently exists. But we did implement categorical eligibility, as Mr. Wortman mentioned. And so households that are determined to be participants of the LIHWAP program, SNAP, TANF, Supplemental Security Income, and also means tested veteran programs, they are automatically deemed eligible for LIHWAP. And so in using that flexibility and that ability to ease the burden, we are suggesting that grantees may rely on households to provide documentation that shows their participation in those programs. And if they bring that participation, the grantee can determine the household to be categorically eligible. And so that hopefully will ease some of the burden in verifying the income and participation in those programs. But with that in mind, I do appreciate the question, and we also look forward to suggestions of what resources are needed. And not to say that we're going to be able to develop all those, but we will try to address some of the needs as much as we can.
Commissioner Bocanegra.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. You know, I just in follow-up to some of the concern about, doing some customer outreach and really getting that message out there. You know, myself as a regulator, one thing I know is that our regulated entities are often bound by the parameters of what they can and cannot do. But I think in this particular case, I'm wondering out loud, and maybe this question is for Heather, are utilities really in the better position to really just do direct targeted outreach? I listened to Christina saying, if you're eligible for LIHWAP, you're automatically eligible for LIHWAP. Is there a way we can just look at the list of, customers that are either disconnected or facing disconnection and just do outreach? Why? I guess it seems more efficient than simply, putting some outreach out there to everybody, if that makes sense. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know at this point if that's something that we can do. I think our biggest challenge right now is that even though this is following the LIHWAP program, what we've seen from the state plans is that there are a lot of differences between that. And I think that is some of the concerns that we're having right now, is not just about the communication to the customers, but also other areas of how to apply payments, those kind of things. So, I don't think right now I could probably answer the question and say this is something that we can look at. I think it's something that we don't have access to at this point. We're working, through those, all of those state plans right now and seeing if that's something that we can do. I think our biggest piece right here from a communication is that we need innovative approaches, like partnering with energy companies and doing community outreach and also being present at local events. I think that's the biggest piece that we need to do right now, to be in alignment with what they're doing, as they're at this point the subject matter experts. 40 years of working through the LIHWAP program. I think that's going to be our best benefit to help the customers.
I will say in North Carolina, going back to the NDA question, earlier this year, one of our water companies reached out to our Department of Health and Human Services and pursued an NDA that gave them access to information that would allow them to proactively really do internal moratorium. I know our electric companies did the same thing. We thought that was pretty innovative on the part of our utilities, just to get access to that information and you sort of move up the starting line. So it's, you know, a part of that's going to depend upon who you're interacting with in your state agency and how innovative they want to be. But it's worth the conversation, and you know, any ability to move that starting line up, it certainly benefits customers.
Okay, well, we're coming towards the top of the hour for our panel here today. I wanted to give the panelists one last opportunity to make any final comments, being respectful of all of our guest time. I'll start with Ms. Clark.
Sure, thank you. I did have one last comment I wanted to make, and that was in response to the 15% administrative cap. And so I really want to thank Mr. Wortman for describing the way that they're applying this and the way that their payments are processed through their state. So with LIHWAP, there is that 15% administrative cap, but there's also a cost category for outreach and eligibility intake. And so that is not included in the administrative cap, and that is allowed to be used for you know, outreach to make the public aware of the program, and also for the eligibility and intake workers who are processing the application. And so the target is 75% for benefits, and that allows 10% to be allocated to the outreach and eligibility category, in addition to the 15% for administration.
Thank you, Ms. Clark, and thank you very much for your time here with us today. Mr. Ayers.
Yeah, one final thought that we didn't really talk about, and I want to encourage water utilities to, you know, to avoid disconnections and even be proactive in reconnecting people when you know the money's coming, even though you haven't got it yet. So if we're in a situation where, all right, we've got this set of customers and we know the money's coming, you know, don't make them sit there for another month or 2 or 3 or 4 until the funds get there to reconnect them, and don't shut them off when you know that the help is coming. So just really want to encourage water and wastewater companies to be gracious in that aspect, and knowing this is a new program we're figuring out, but for folks, the funds are coming, just, you know, be lenient and help keep them in service.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayers, also for your presentation here today, and also for representing Nasuka. As I said earlier, their advocacy has helped to make this program possible. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Ms. Holting.
Yes, thank you. First, again, thank you to both commissioners for having myself and American Water here today. Mr. Ayers, I'm going to hit just right on what you just said. You know, we have good processes in place right now for all of our other programs, and we do realize that this is a brand new program. It may take more than 45 days to get a payment in. So we are well aware of that and understand. And you know, I think that's the best thing for our customers too, is that we know that they're reaching out, they're, you know, getting those funds, and we need to do our part. So again, this is a great program. We are really looking forward to it. And, you know, there's going to be some lessons learned. There's going to be a lot of unknowns as we go through this. But I think you know, this will grow. LIHWAP didn't start easy, right? It just started the same way as this and just grew. So we'll get there. But I think if everybody's on the same, you know, same level playing field here, then we can all grow together. So appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
Ms. Holting, I certainly do appreciate it. And American Water's stewardship of this issue has also been very helpful. Hopefully, a lot of other utility companies will be able to learn from some of the experiences you've had. And so finally, last but certainly not least, Mr. Work.
All right, thank you. Yeah, the thing I would say from the state administrative perspective is that there are going to be complications. We're trying to make this program as simple as possible while meeting all the requirements of it. And it does take cooperation the way we're working with utilities. We're trying to reach out and talk to them first, but there's such a wide range of them that we're trying to keep the agreements as simple as possible. We're trying to figure out the payments, and it's going to take. We're going to learn things, and we just need to everyone work together. So, be patient with the administrators, but we're ready to go and move forward with it. And thank you all for having this. This was a good conversation. I'm glad to be part of it.
Mr. Wortman. And again, especially in the sense that you were one of the last ones to sign up, but also the last asked to sign up. So very short notice, but also very positive comments. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you also to all of you listening in today. I give the final word to Commissioner Bocanegra.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Linton. It's been a pleasure being invited by my fellow committee. This is an important topic. I think that there is clearly a lot to be worked out. The Committee on Water remains committed to working with all of our stakeholders, including our state level agencies, so that we can roll this program out in a way that reaches our most vulnerable customers. And so I would encourage all of you on the call to stay in touch with myself, with Commissioner Linton, our committees. We're more than happy to see how we can collaborate together. So thank you all for this time.
Thank you also to NARUC for their support and help and sponsorship of this panel. We really do appreciate it. And for those of you looking to get a copy to rewatch this or to share it with others, a link will be made available. Just watch your email. It'll probably come from NARUC. I won't send it out myself. So make sure to keep an eye out for it, and you'll see it shortly. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.